What up YouTube fam, we in here, anthonytoglife, back with another video. And first things first, I just want to say Happy New Year. It's 2022, we made it. I hope this is the best and most prosperous year for you yet. This year I am starting a Project 52. Now I've attempted this at least 3 other times and I've never finished. I think the furthest that I've gotten was week 8. So I'm hoping that this year is the year that I make it all the way through, and I want to take you along on the journey. Now, essentially what a Project 52 is a weekly themed photography challenge. And the whole point of it is to get you out as a photographer, doing something different, getting you outside of your comfort zone and really flexing your creative muscle. And then at the end of the year, you can look back at where you started versus where you ended, and you can see the growth that you've had as a photographer. So it really is just a fun challenge that's just meant to get you out to shoot. So I'm really looking forward to doing this challenge. So this week the theme was self-portrait, but there was a little bit of a twist to it. The whole point of it was to show you and who you are without showing your face. So what I want to do in this video is essentially walk you through my thought process and how I captured this week's image, which I will put on the screen right now. Now, first things first, when it comes to doing a self-portrait, you really need to think about the end result. What are you going to want to do with the image? How are you wanting to edit it? What do you want the mood to be? How do you want the image to look? Because a lot of that will dictate how you set up things to take that image. So that's very important. Obviously for this one, I'm doing it inside. If you're doing it outside on location somewhere or you're in the environment, you really need to have an idea of what it is you're trying to capture or what you want that image to convey. Because your background choices, your lighting choices, everything about that image is really going to revolve around what you want that image to tell. So for this particular image, I knew I couldn't show my face, so I was going to use lighting to basically highlight me but not show my face. And so I had 2 options. I could either short light myself, in which case I would be looking off camera, have the light coming in this way, and then this part is in shadow, so you essentially couldn't see my face. Or I could top light myself. And so I opted to go with this one simply because it was easier for me and it required less work and less finessing to get the light in the right spot. So that's why I chose this one. And I went with a Glow 10" by 24" softbox because what was very important was to control the light spill. I did not want to have a lot of light spilling everywhere because I knew that I was going to enlarge this image in post. So obviously I'm in my apartment, I only have so much space, but I knew I wanted to enlarge that space to make it look like I was in a bigger environment than what I was. So to save myself work, I really wanted to make sure that I didn't have light spilling all over the place that I would then have to correct that in post. And I only have a backdrop that's so big. So I went with this smaller softbox because it's just big enough to light me, but not big enough to throw light everywhere else. And then I also have a grid on it to help keep that light in place. Now, the background choice, if you notice, I went with the Westcott 5'7" backdrop. And the reason why I went with that backdrop over something like seamless paper is that this backdrop handles light better. Seamless paper, believe it or not, even the black is quite reflective. And so when you use that, even having this light right here, if there was a little bit of light that got on it, it would light that background up, and then I would have to fix that in post. And again, I was trying to do everything I could to not make the post-processing part any more cumbersome than it needs to be. So I have that backdrop right there. I have this set up, do my overhead lighting, just using an 80-200. And so essentially I was able to sit down here, have my camera right here in front of me, use an intervalometer to be able to set it so it would just take the pictures. And then I essentially just did a bunch of different images and then found the one that I liked, and then I edited it. Now, I want to give a tip on self-portraits that I utilized for this picture, but didn't really need it as much with this one because I was shooting this one at f8. But I want to give a little tip on when you do self-portraits, especially when you are shooting at a very shallow depth of field. Now, when it comes to getting focus, Some people will use like the Camera Connect app, which you certainly can use that. That does help. But what I've always used was a light stand, and I use the light stand to basically serve as a placeholder so that I can put this where I'm going to be. I can focus on it, and then my focus is good. I set my lens to manual focus so that way it doesn't change. And then I mark wherever I'm going to be, and then everything is good. It's a great way to get focused, but a mistake that a lot of people will make is that they'll figure out where they want to stand. So let's say I want to stand right here for this image. They'll put the light stand in front of them like this, then they'll go and they'll focus on this, they'll move this out the way, and then they'll get those images. Now, if you're shooting at f5.6, f8, f11, something like that, that's fine because you have quite a large depth of field, so that can still work. But if you're shooting something like f1.2, 1.4, 2, 2.8, the difference between this point right here and where your eye is enough distance to where your eye and part of your face will actually be soft and not in focus. So you'll have your nose in focus, but your eyes are soft. And that's probably not what you want. So a tip that I want to give when you're using a light stand, which is a very good thing to use, instead of putting it in front of you, take the light stand and get it right in line with where the eye is. So if I was standing here, instead of having it in front of me, I'm going to move the light stand over this way, and I'm going to get that lined up right with where the eye is. So that way when I focus on this, it's the equivalent of focusing on the eye, and I can get tack sharp photos every single time, even if I'm shooting at f1.2. Now obviously it is critical that you stay in the same spot because your depth of field is going to be so narrow that if you move it all, you know what'll happen. So you do have to stay in the same spot, but it's just a little tip to help you get that focus nice and sharp. Another thing when it comes to doing self-portraits, and I touched on this when I was kind of explaining how I got this image for this week, is that you really want to use an intervalometer. Now, of course, you can use the self-timer, or you can use a remote, or you can use your phone to trigger it. When it comes to doing self-portraits, something that I have really found over the years is that if I have to focus on either triggering it with the remote or my phone, or I'm doing the self-timer so I'm only getting one shot at a time, it really takes me out of the zone when I'm doing self-portraits. If I were to be sitting right here and I take a shot and then I have to get up and do the camera again, come back, sit down, every time that I'm getting up, going to the camera, coming back, I'm kind of losing focus of where I was, what kind of image I want to get. And it really takes you out of it. Whereas if you have an intervalometer, you can set it for 10, 15, 20 images. I normally do mine 20 images, 10 seconds apart. So that way it takes the shot. I can kind of adjust a little bit, try something different, get another shot, make another small adjustment, get another shot. And it really allows me to get a variety in a short amount of time. And I'm able to get the image that I want really quick. If I had to just do one at a time, go back to the camera back and forth, it would take me forever and it just wouldn't be as effective. So I highly recommend using an intervalometer. I use an external one, a newer one that I picked up from Amazon. I think it was like 15 bucks. Most of my cameras have one built in, but I just prefer to use the external one because I just don't like dealing with the menus and that one resets, and it's just easier to use the external one. But whichever one you use, I would highly recommend you use an intervalometer when doing your self-portraits. So there you have it, folks. You are well on your way to creating some amazing self-portraits. Hopefully you found this video helpful or entertaining, or you liked it. If you did, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. It really does help the channel. It helps get this video in front of more people. You know it's an endless battle fighting the YouTube algorithm. If you like this content and you want to see more content like it, go ahead and subscribe. And do like Anita Ward said and ring that bell. Now, I know you're probably going to have to Google who Anita Ward is. That's okay. Now, as always, I appreciate your support. I appreciate you watching my videos. And until the next one, take care.